Welcome to another episode of the Momentum Interview Series, where we chat to subject matter experts in sales and RevOps. Today, I'm speaking to Sidharth Sharma, a sales leader who's worked at Amplitude and Browser Stack. Sid, welcome to the stream.
Thank you for having me, Mo. Really happy to be here.
Cool. So let's jump right into it. What are the key elements in your go-to-market playbook?
Oh, you're going straight for the big one. So I think when I think of that question, it's fairly broad. But what I would say is the critical areas for me are ICPs. So you really need to have a very, very good understanding of your personas and your customers. The better you know about them, the more easier it is for you to figure out your messaging, to be more relatable, and to target them. Second, I would say buying process. I see a lot of companies who've been very amazing, who what they do is they marry the buying process of a customer with their selling process. And I think if you can do that, then it's just a very, the sales process becomes a breeze for both the parties, right? Third, I would say sales ops and RevOps. I think personally, I'm a very analytical person. I think this is one piece that I think is critical for any go-to-market playbook. So you got to have a very strong playbook on the sales ops side. You need to know every single thing from your territories to your customer segments to what's the potential of these territories and segments, ARPAs, to knowing your sales cycles, your average deal sizes, product attach rates, and even having the right stack of tools to enable your teams. And if you have all of that done very, very well, you can actually create a very well-oiled machine and an org which basically outperforms any other org. And I think this is where I feel a lot of startups, specifically in their early stage, they don't invest early on because they think, hey, you know what, when I reach like 25 million ARR, that's when I need a sales ops person. Actually, you probably need one at like 5 million or even earlier if possible. So that's one area. And then I think lastly for me is hiring the right sort of folks. So, one of my earlier managers, like 5-6 years ago, he used to say, give me a half decent salesperson and with the right behaviors and intention, and then I'll create a great team out of it. And I'll create a great member out of it. And I think that's something that I've seen throughout my career and I try to practice as well, which is, great sales orgs are built on great culture. And that's what's better long-term for you than just hiring, a bunch of A players. Now you can go out and hire the best experienced people, but if they don't fit together culturally, they don't have the right behaviors, the right intentions, they don't want to pitch in to actually build a successful org and a team, it's probably not going to work. So hire people who are, curious, who are humble, who have a growth mindset. And I think that's the last piece I would say. I think these 4 things I feel like are the most important for me in a GTM playbook.
I love that. So while I have you on that question, what's one way to sort of marry the process of understanding your ICPs and understanding their buying process? Would you recommend, say, a specific type of user interviews? How would you go about that?
Yeah, I would say like that's where you could start. I think, what I would say is start by obviously interviewing the users, doing some market research, understand how people in your space and your target personas buy a software like yours. Second, all the people who've bought your software, your early adopters, your current customers, ask them how they sold your software internally, right? If you sold your product to someone, they must have had a senior who they went and sold your product to, right? How do people write business cases about your product? If someone's, for example, at Amplitude, I was selling product analytics. If someone's trying to buy a product analytics product, how did they create a business case for their VP or their CEO? And what did they say internally to sell it, right? You take that and you use that to devise your messaging. You use that to devise your pitch, right? Because that's what relates with your persona the best, right? You might think, and this usually happens, right? When founders create products, when product managers create product, they think of it in one way. They think of it as, hey, this is how my product's going to be used. But that's not necessarily what your customer is saying or thinking about or doing with your product. So understand that. Once you got that, that's the way you got to keep selling it. And that's how you kind of marry both.
That's fantastic. A lot of startups really focus on selling to the ICP in isolation, forgetting that a lot of the times there's a buying team, a buying committee behind that decision. That's so cool. And how would you approach scaling an enterprise sales team? What's your North Star in that process?
Based on my experience, I would say when it comes to scaling an enterprise team, I would probably think of maybe 2 or 3 things. I think one is definitely building a very widespread belief in the product. I think your sellers need to really truly understand the value your product brings to a customer, the problem it solves for someone, and truly understand that, and almost have 100% faith in that. I think nothing beats that. Second, I would say, again, going back to my love for sales ops, building a scalable process with a strong sales ops team. You have to have the right tools, you have to have the right processes to empower the sales team to actually do their job, which is just to sell, right? And it's going to be a mix of creating the right sales stack, to the right trainings on those products, to having a very clear understanding of the business operationally, right? And then lastly, I would say, is investing heavily into sales enablement. I think as sales teams scale, it is very easy for folks to adapt their own version of the pitch, the product and its value, and kind of put in their bits into it, which is fine. But when it comes to scaling and having very big organizations, this is one area where you need to focus more and more. You need to invest a lot in coaching and enablement. You want to make sure that all the teams are speaking the same languages, they're doing deeper discoveries, they're kind of going about the whole process in the same way, because that's when you can start building a predictable model and a repeatable process, which will allow you to then scale even further easily. And then you mentioned North Star, right? I would say enablement would be my North Star. I want to think of getting the teams to be more focused and more disciplined, and for that you need very good enablement and coaching to ensure that everyone's built the same way.
As you were speaking just now, I was thinking of a statement I read a few days ago, which is turning mercenaries into missionaries. And so if you think of salespeople as these highly trained mercenaries that you bring onto your team, the goal then, if you want to help them sell better and scale the team even further, is to turn them into missionaries that are going to, for lack of a better word, evangelize your product to the target audience.
Absolutely. And it's different for different stages, right? So when we're talking about enterprise sales team scaling, that's when you exactly need what you just said. But let's say when we're talking about a startup who's at 5 million, 10 million ARR, wanting to go to 50, that's when we need your pirates to become mercenaries, right? That's the first stage. So it completely depends on the stage, but I think for enterprise, you're absolutely right. It's mercenaries to missionaries.
And how should enterprise sales managers think about expanding into new regions? So you've done that a couple of times in your career. What do you think should guide them in that process?
It's not a very easy process, but based on my experience working through the US Europe market and then now Asia the last couple of years, what I would say is you want to go into markets which are similar to the existing markets and existing customers you have, right? And this is in terms of looking for similar personas, maturity of the customers, the buying process of these customers, and possibly utilizing the existing product marketing materials that you have, and the efforts you've already put in to kind of work in the same market. For example, if let's say there's a company which operates in the US and Europe market, wants to expand into APAC. Ideally, a lot of people think of going into Japan, either through a JV or directly or through a reseller partner, because Japan's one of the largest SaaS buying markets after US. But I would say that's probably not the right move. I would personally more recommend starting with, let's say, ANZ and India, because both those markets are highly English-speaking markets. They are very well connected, from companies, startups to VCs, with US and European markets. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing already happening in those markets. And then a lot of the efforts you've already put into your marketing and product marketing materials and case studies will still resonate in these markets, right? Amazon's still relevant, and Amazon case study is still relevant in US and India and ANZ. Similarly, if you think of DoorDash, doesn't exist out of US, but everyone knows about it in India, and they don't know about it in Australia, because there are similar companies in these regions who've now looked at those companies as their North Star, as their ideal product to look for and learn from. So start with those markets. Moreover, this will not require any in-product change. If you want to sell in Japan, if you want to sell in Korea, you'll need to have some sort of translation in your marketing material, maybe even in your product. It doesn't require any heavy lifting on the technical side. And once you've set these markets, is then where you can use this to expand into Southeast Asia, Korea, and Japan. For example, Indonesia as a startup ecosystem and a company ecosystem follows India very closely right now. There's a lot of shared investors in the market, and a lot of products that are now being launched in Indonesia are products that have existed in the Indian startup ecosystem for the last 8 to 10 years. So they're sort of mimicking the same journey. So they're learning from the same space. So if you've done well in India, you'll probably do well in Indonesia, and you'll still maintain that relevancy, right? For Korea, Japan, I think another great tack that I've seen companies use is channel partners. These markets are highly relationship-led. These markets have obviously their own language and nuances and cultural nuances. Better to go via a channel partner. Find companies who are already selling a bunch of other SaaS products and see the partners that you could work with, and then enter these markets. Make your life easier. Start, through those resellers, create a base, and at that point of time, you can see whether you want to scale with the same resellers or do you want to add a direct sales team. There's a bunch of ways there, but that's how I would say like you should go about it. And somewhere I think it's true vice versa as well.
Is the additional friction worth it going through resellers in these foreign markets?
In my experience, I would say yes. There's definitely a lot of money in Korea and Japan to be a lot of revenue to be made. These markets are actually pretty huge in themselves, and I think what resellers bring is that they lower the bar to entry for you, right? So you start with them, you explore the market with them, and then you kind of go figure it out. And you'd see a lot of companies in the space, who've done that before, who've chosen the tactic to start in, let's say, Japan via JVs. You create a joint venture with a couple of Japanese companies, and you kind of go in. Very easy way because you need that to be there, right? So I would say it's definitely still worth it. Kind of actually holds true for Latin America as well. I'm seeing a lot of SaaS companies do that for Latin America, go in via resellers.
That is so cool. I just wanted to mention at this point that I'm really enjoying this deep expertise that you're sharing on how to expand into Asian and ANZ markets. You spoke about ICPs earlier on. What's your ideal customer, the one that makes your sales process a breeze?
Someone who comes and says, I want to buy. No, I'm just kidding. I'd say an ideal customer would be someone who knows the why behind things. They can articulate very well the problem they have, why they're looking to buy a solution, the use cases that different teams would be impacted by this product or this solution or this problem being solved, what those look like. I think that's great. If they have a great understanding of their own evaluation criteria based on their own company, I think that's great as well. I know a lot of times people think that it's almost unreal to have or come across a customer or a prospect who knows all these things, but trust me, I think it's possible. I've been around a bunch of deals where I've seen this happen, and I think that's something which I feel works really well, and makes the entire cycle a breeze, because you can then go and attack, like a surgeon. You can figure out, the problem, you go, you solve the problem, and you move on. You
hear a lot about this concept of educating the market on the problem and the need for a solution, and then the need for your solution. Is this something you wish more SaaS companies did, either through content, through marketing, through their sales enablement material? How do you see that playing out?
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you there. I think there's definitely a need always to. I think what a lot of SaaS companies focus on is differentiators. That, hey, there are 8 products in the market. Here's how we're different. I think that's good, but I think what they need to focus on is being educators of the market, being the people who help solve the problem irrespective and in an agnostic way. And I've seen that those companies do these things very well. In fact, I feel, this is my personal belief, but Amplitude as a company did that in their early stage. The first few years of the company, they came out with a bunch of playbooks around product management, a retention playbook, an engagement playbook, just helping the community understand how you could do retention better. They partnered with a bunch of advisors and a lot of people who've been there and done that and brought all that knowledge, in these playbooks for the community. And I think that set them apart. A lot of people started realizing that, oh, yes, they have a product, but first let me read this playbook, right? And once you go through that, and it's an agnostic playbook, you can use it with any product. But again, if you're the educator of the market, you then usually tend to be the product that someone thinks of. So it's definitely something that I wish more SaaS companies did.
You definitely remain top of mind, and also it provides ample opportunities to organically inject your brand into these playbooks, into these guides, into these content pieces that you're creating. Moving into sales teams, if sales teams did only one thing to reduce churn, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'd say multi-year and multi-product contracts. It's probably not what everyone thinks of right away. People think of being more relevant or solving problems more often for the customer or having more touch points. But I feel like this is one that I personally have always believed a lot in. I feel this not only integrates your product into the customer's world more, it makes it more stickier. It becomes more stickier. It also gives your customer success and post-sales team longer to work with the customer on getting the most value out of your product, right? And then obviously a longer partnership means more chances to upsell and cross-sell, which impacts your NRR directly. It means better visibility for your finance teams, better visibility for your marketing teams, because they know they have a long-standing partnership, so they can do more co-marketing with these customers. And obviously investors, they love a metric like this, where they know there's a lot of ARR committed for multiple years.
So it's almost like you're banking on the power of time to get people interested and integrated into a product.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? For a lot of enterprise products, you do a 1-year contract, implementation gets done in a couple of months. By the time customers start looking at, using, getting trained, you're already at like month 4 to 6. And that's usually, I've seen most of the enterprise products would probably have an average of 4 to 6 month time to value. And so imagine you're doing that, right? 6 months have passed, you do that another quarter, and then suddenly you're at month 9, and now you're talking about a renewal. It's too soon, it's too early. Imagine you had a 3-year contract. You don't have to talk about renewal at all. All you have to talk about is, how do I help you grow more? How do I help your business? How do I keep giving your team more value? So the conversation from that contract sort of hurdle, that sort of mental block of, hey, I have to get this contract signed again, both for you and the customer, it kind of goes away. And you just focus on one thing, which is helping the customer. And I think that usually pans out better and better long term.
There's a bit of a chicken and egg problem here, though, wouldn't you agree? Such that for me to convince you to sign a multi-year contract, I need to have already shown enough value to make it worth your while. But before you've spent enough time with me, you haven't seen the value that would convince you to make a multi-year contract. How should SaaS companies think about solving that chicken and egg problem?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think this is where during your sales cycle, that's where you have control over it, right? As a sales rep, you have this whole control with you. And therefore, that's why I like this metric, because it is 100% in your control. During your sales cycle, this is where proof points come into place. This is where you have the customers meet a few existing customers, do customer references. This is where you talk them through similar companies in their space who've done this before. Take them through those case studies. This is where you have them meet your post-sales team during the sales cycle. Let them see what the experience would look like. Who are the people who are going to work with me once I sign this contract? And to be honest, today, I think when it comes to products, no buyer wants to be like, hey, I want to go through a 1-month evaluation process, 2-month evaluation process every 12 months. So getting 2-year contracts is fairly easy. I've seen people do 3 years as well very easily. I've done 3-year contracts in my life quite a few times. Anything beyond that, yes, it becomes challenging, because you don't know how business landscape will change, and obviously change in our world today is very rapid. Obviously, there are different scenarios. For example, SME products might have, or products targeting the SME market might have a harder time here, because there the tendency to try and then buy is higher. I think for enterprise products, at least, this is a very easy thing to do.
You've only been advising startups for about a year or so, but in your experience so far, for startups without major funding, how would you, as an angel investor, advise them to approach the sales process?
The playbook will also change based on the product and the market they're selling to, right? Having said that, my advice is to focus on selling for founders to focus on selling their own story. and the product for at least the first year or so, for at least a certain goal, which can be either revenue based or a number of customers, right? Let's say 500K revenue, right? Keep selling yourself till that point of time. At this point, a lot of founders think I should now hire my VP of sales, which necessarily might not be the right thing to do right away. You could possibly hire just a couple of very hungry AEs and let them, help you sell more and more. Kind of take away some of your work, run the sales cycle for you, but then you still remain someone who's involved in those cycles, and then you get some momentum there. In fact, Jason Lemkin from SaaStar, he actually has quite a few blogs written on this, on hiring your first VP of sales, on your first reps, on for how long the founders should sell. So I think those are great resources for anyone to read. Beyond this, another thing that I'm seeing quite a bit is that a lot of founders are now almost using their cap table as a distribution mechanism. They're going more and more and getting strategic angels on board. They want to get people who are actually their ICPs on board as angels, and then use them to not only sell but get the right learning from them, which I think is amazing. So that's the other thing I recommend. It's a brilliant tech, right? Like if you think about it, that's where I recommend a lot of companies to say, hey, if you're raising $1 million seed round, for example, fine, raise from VCs, absolutely fine. Maybe keep 300K for strategic angels. Make a list of all the angels that you think are perfect for you, for your space, who've done this before and built businesses before. Cold reach out to them, find warm connections, do anything, pitch them and see how many of them come on board. The moment you get them invested in you as a company, no matter the check size, if someone's saying, hey, I'll only give you $10,000, fine. You don't care about the $10,000. You care about that person invested in you. They'll not only help you get a few connections, they'll not only help you hire, they'll not only help you get a bunch of deals, but they'll share their experience with you. And I think that's where I feel a lot of founders should focus on.
The more I listen to you speak, the more I realize that a lot of your strategy when it comes to go-to-market, when it comes to scaling enterprise teams, when it comes to hiring, is really just about how do you get people to have skin in the game? When you're educating the markets, that's you showing that you've got skin in the game. You're taking time out of your busy day and you're pulling resources together to get people to understand this problem. As you're scaling, it's about how do I get them to have skin in the game by having them sign up for multi-year contracts? How do we get investors to have skin in the game in our company so that they help us? That's it's a brilliant strategy. I don't see a lot of it, which is kind of why it stands out for me. And I just want to say that it's a great strategy, and I hope more founders and more sales leaders integrate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you go to a VC and say, hey, I'm at 50 million ARR, and out of that, 35 is committed for the next 3 years. They're going to jump at you, right? And similarly, tell me one angel investor who'll say, oh, I invested in this company, but I don't really care about them. No one's ever going to say that. They'll always help you out. And I think that's what you need. You need as much help from as many people as you can. And these are the best ways to do it. To be honest, now that you say this, I remember reading this blog where this founder, they did an amazing thing. They actually went, so I think they were like a Series A startup. So they actually went to their first 10 customers and got them to be angel investors in the Series B round, which was an insane thing, right? You just go to your first few customers and say, hey, you've been with me when you were my early adopter, you started with us, you helped us grow the product, invest in it. There's nothing wrong in it, right? And that's again an amazing thing to do.
Man, this is going to be such a fantastic piece when it comes out. Looking at across all your sales roles, what do you find yourself doing more and more as your career progresses?
I'd say networking. I think as my career has grown, I see myself continuously meeting a lot of people, making effort to meet new people, understand their industry, their space, their technology, the problems they solve for their customers. I've realized enterprise sales is all about having the right partners, internal, external, the right influencers and connections. I wish someone early in my career would have taught me this. I used to be afraid early in my career to think that, okay, I can just reach out to, another VP of sales and ask for a coffee, but obviously I'm not anymore. And I think with remote work becoming bigger, it's even becoming easier. Just grab virtual coffees with people, keep time, in a week, at least a couple of hours, and you get to meet 4 new people. And there are enough tools out there. There's products like Lunch Club, which help you meet a lot of similar folks in your space. throughout the world. Keep meeting more and more people. You never know who's going to help you where.
And for ambitious sales professionals out there, what's one secret to surviving and thriving in sales leadership that they should probably know about?
I think one of my biggest learnings, and it's fairly recent in the last couple of years, has been focus and discipline. I think everyone talks about hustling. Everyone talks about, this person's a great hustler, or how, startups and founders who hustle, they're the ones who get successful. It's true. It's definitely true. True hustle definitely is very important. But I think what I've learned is that hustle doesn't scale beyond a point, right? What scales beyond a point is focus and discipline. And that's where you need to kind of put more energy in. You couple that with the right hustle, and I think you've got a magic potion. So I think that's what I would recommend folks. As you keep growing your career, keep getting more focused, keep getting more disciplined, keep focusing on your basics, and I think everything else will follow.
Career mistakes are usually quite costly. Now, with the benefit of your hindsight, what's one pitfall you would like early career sales professionals to avoid?
Yeah, I mean this comes from a very personal experience. In fact, and one of my early mentors spoke to me about this, and I think that's where I kind of learned this. You always need great mentors in your career and in your life, and I think that's something that a lot of people aren't taught, or people don't speak about. If you look at sales as a profession today, it's still a profession which does not have a university degree. You can't go to a university and get a degree in sales and go make a career out of it. The more folks you keep meeting, you'll realize they've all fallen into sales in some way or the other, right? But this is where you need the right mentors to kind of actually grow and be on the right track. And I see a lot of early sales folks make the mistake to jump ship, or to follow money, or to follow a title bump, an SDR trying to become an AE sooner, or an AE going from an SMB to an enterprise role very quickly, and do that in the first 2 to 4 years of the career. I think this is where people should focus on their craft, and people should focus on honing their skills with the right mentors. And I think that's one thing that I would definitely advise a lot of early folks.
And it's obviously going to be hard to pick one, but as someone who's been on the other side of the hiring table, what's one trait you're usually looking for when you're hiring a candidate?
Curiosity. I think that's the biggest one for me, one of the top ones. I believe salespeople who are innately curious, they just go a longer way. You need to be someone who's trying to understand the why behind things. You generally need to be curious and want to understand your customer better, their challenges better, their pain points better, and that will put you in a position to solve those problems better, right? And this is where I think, for me, I differentiate the best of the best with the average people. I think curiosity is one of the biggest ones.
And on the flip side of that, what's one trait or lack thereof that would ruin their chances with you?
Humility. I think that's the one for me. I think most successful reps that I've personally worked with, I've seen folks who've closed $5-7 million a year, doing 600-700% of their quota. They're all very humble. They're always ready to pitch in. They're always ready to help another AE out. They're always ready to come with you and do mock calls or jump on a call with you. And I think that's what separates them. I think the more humble you are, the better sales org you'll build, the better culture you'll have. And I think that's something that people should look for. So
arrogance would be a huge red flag for you.
Yes.
If you could deliver one piece of sales advice on a billboard, what would it be?
Keep networking. I think that's the biggest one for me. You never know who you'd meet, but that meeting would turn into a great friendship, a deal, your next job. You never know. So just keep meeting more people.
And what's something quirky about you that most people don't know? What do you nerd out on?
I think something that's quirky. I'd say if I've ever spoken with you, any person, even for like 5 minutes, anywhere, whether it's a meeting or work or at a party, I'll never forget your face, your name, and the conversation we had. And it's kind of same with numbers as well. I have a fairly decent memory, and one of my personal fears is that it'll fade away as I grow old and as I get old. So that's something that people don't know. I usually remember every single thing that you've said to me, your name, your face, like even if 10 years later you meet me, I still remember. And I think, when you say, what do I nerd on? I would say startups. I love reading about startups. I love reading about the different businesses that are being built, who's doing what in what part of the world. And then, looking at their metrics, specifically SaaS metrics. If anyone follows Nathan Latka, like they'll know what I'm talking about. That's what I really nerd out on.
I think Nathan Latka has built one of the best SaaS media companies I've ever come across. It's ridiculous. I don't know where that man gets enough hours in a day to work on that. But Latka's name, I think, is one that's going to go down in the history of startups. And as you were speaking just now, I was thinking to myself, I think what you need to do is become an advisor on the cap table of a startup working on memory retention.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that could be something. I'm going to look at that and see if someone's doing that. Yeah. And well, if someone's not doing that, you might as well do that yourself, right?
You might as well start it, solve your own problem. And then final question for you. If you weren't working in sales, what would you be doing instead?
Oh, this is a very hard one to answer. I actually studied computer science, but I know I would have never done something close to that. I think when you look back, on your life, you see certain points which have taken you in a very different direction. But I think personally, I'd say if I weren't in sales, I'd probably be doing something close to F&B. Maybe running a bar or a restaurant or maybe a chef. I love cooking. I love getting people drunk. So I'm sure it must have been a mix of one of those.
You should open the Sharma Shawarma bar, which is like a bar that sells shawarmas. I would 100% attend and buy up all your entire menu.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think it's a dream almost every human has, and definitely all the salespeople have, I feel, is to open a bar. I don't know why, but I think salespeople just want to do that at some point of their life.
I think it goes back to that point that you made earlier on about networking and meeting people, because I get the idea that you're very much a people person. And so a bar is a watering hole for people to meet each other and make these organic connections that you've been talking about the whole time. This has been a fantastic conversation, Sid. One of the best interviews that we've done for Momentum. I've been speaking to Sid Sharma. He's he's a sales leader who's worked at Amplitude and Browser Stack, and he's starting a new adventure soon. We can't wait to see what he does in that new role. Sid, thank you so much for making the time, and we'll catch you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mo. Really, really great time meeting you, and always happy to talk more and more and see how I can share my knowledge with others and if it can actually help someone.
Nice. Where can people connect with you online?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly easy to find. I'm at Sidharth Sharma there. So that's the best place for anyone to find me and reach out to me.
Sweet. All right, Sid. Have a great one.
Thank you, Mo. Have a good day.